So I walk in the locker room and Mark Freer, a forward on our team, is sitting on the training table getting his knee looked at. And I go, hey, what's wrong with you? He goes, oh, I can't go. I twisted my knee in warm-ups. I go, what? So I realized now I got to play right. And I'm not ready. So I go into the bathroom. I used to have this like 25, 30-minute mental preparation routine. I did it all the time. When I've got to do that in 5 minutes. So I did. I sat there. I went through did an abbreviated version of my mental prep routine. So I'm in my stall now, and Terry walks in. Hey, Graeme, you're playing tonight. I said, yeah, no kidding, Terry. Thanks a lot. So then I get out there for the first period. I get one shift the entire period, and I scored, right? So I come back to the bench, and his jaw's like this. He's like, I go, I told you, and I sat down. So then the second period, he gives me another shift. I score again. Third period, I didn't get anything. So this went on for 3 games. I had 5 goals in 3 games, getting about 3 shifts a game, right? And so finally he calls me to his office after the 5th game. He says, I got to talk to you. Oh, sorry, the 3rd game. I talked to you. And he says, you're making me look like an idiot. I said, yeah, you look pretty stupid, man. I'm getting 3 shifts a game. And I've got 5 goals in 3 games. How's that feel? And he looks at, I said, you know what, Terry, remember I told you I was going to get 20? He goes, yeah. I said, well, listen, you should keep playing me the way you are right now, because I think I'm going to change my mind. I think I'm going to get 30 instead. And he looks, I said, yeah, I'm telling you, you're not going to stop me. I told you this weeks ago.
That was Graeme Townshend, former member of the New York Islanders, Ottawa Senators, and Boston Bruins, and you are listening to the Up My Hockey podcast with Jason Podolin.
Just watch me now.
Welcome to Up My Hockey with Jason Podolin, where we deconstruct the NHL journey, discuss what it takes to make it, and have a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Jason Podolin, a 31st overall draft pick who played 41 NHL games, but thought he was destined for 1,000. Learn from my story and those of my guests. This is a hockey podcast about reaching your potential. Hey there, welcome back to another episode of Up My Hockey with Jason Podolin. I am Jason Podolin, and today you are here for episode number 83. And episode 83 has an amazing guest by the name of Graeme Townshend. That name might not be super familiar to a lot of you. He wasn't an NHL star. He played 45 games in the NHL. But one of the things that is a claim to Graeme Townshend's fame is that he is the first ever Jamaican-born player to play in the NHL. Graeme did move from Jamaica when he was 3 to the Toronto area, and that's where he grew up. But his story, his path, and what it took for him to get those 45 NHL games and to be an NHL player and a pro player, also to get into coaching afterwards, had a lot to do with his mental approach, with his mindset, with his way of being able to handle adversity. Whether that be from a coach or whether that be from teammates or whether that be from the environment, he was always able to persevere and to push through. There's so many great stories here. Graeme is a great guy. We ended up first meeting at an NHL alumni event. It was a speaking event to learn how to public speak better. And so Graeme was there and I was there. I got to know Graeme there. That was probably 5-6 years ago now. And then just recently on my New York Islanders alumni trip out to Long Island, Graeme was there. Well, one of the teams Graeme played for was the Islanders. So we ended up reconnecting there. I had a really good talk about what he's doing now with as far as his hockey camp's concerned and his development of youth athletes. I shared with him what I'm doing, also helping youth athletes in the mindset way. We found that we had a lot of synergies, and I was like, you know what, Graeme, your story is amazing. What you do now is amazing. Let's get you on the pod. So he was kind enough to come. And he broke a record, by the way, for a pod, which we joke about during the conversation. I believe it was 25 minutes Graeme speaks relatively at the beginning of the podcast, straight, without me saying a word. So I think he took over Terry Ryan's previous record, and so Graeme is now in the Up My Hockey podcast Hall of Fame for longest time on mic, being uninterrupted. He has tons of great stories. You're going to hear a lot of good ones. I love his story about Boris, the one when he was an RPI. at this tournament. You will not believe what happened there at the hotel room situation. We touch on a lot of things here. We touch on race. Graeme is a black hockey player, was a black hockey player, and so he grew up in that environment. He sees it now as a coach. We cover that topic. We cover the road to the NHL. We cover mindset. We cover a lot of things in this pod. We think we talked for about 90 minutes, and I really think you're going to enjoy Graeme and his stories. So, without further ado, I bring you Graeme Townshend, episode 83 of the Up My Hockey podcast. All right, Mr. Graeme Townshend, welcome to the Up My Hockey podcast.
Thanks a lot, Jason. Thanks for having me.
No worries, man. I'm glad we could figure it out. We had a little bit of trouble there with the old phone, with the Android, but we're on a computer now, and life is good.
Yeah, I'm not a big computer guy, but I'm glad my wife was able to help me figure this out. So it's actually much better than being on a phone. So I'm looking forward to this.
Fantastic. So I'd done the introduction beforehand, but just for a little bit of recap, we met originally at the NHL alumni, jeepers, what was it called? Like Speaking for Success or something like that?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We did a seminar or a training session down there on how to do public speaking and whatnot. So
yeah, exactly.
Right.
So we, which was fantastic. Actually, that was the first thing that I was involved with the alumni. I wasn't really a registered member, and then I became that, and I saw that they had all these cool programs, and that was something that I definitely wanted to be better at. So down I flew there. I think where were we in Philadelphia?
Yeah, just outside of Philly. Actually, I think we were over in Delaware, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was very close to Philadelphia.
Anyways, yeah, so we spent a couple days together, got to know you there, and then we just got back from our Islanders alumni trip, and reconnected there again. And I thought that your story, well, you have a great story. You know, I mean, and what you're doing now, and I mean, helping other people reach their dreams and goals, and you're inspired to do that is really in line with what I like to do. So I thought, geez, let's have a conversation about your past and your journey, because that's what it's all about here in Up My Hockey. I know there's going to be lots of lessons for my audience. So once again, thanks for joining, and I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Well, hey, thanks for having me again. I'm looking forward to this. Yeah, I'm always looking to try to do what I can to pay it forward, to give back to the game in my own way. And I was very, I mean, I look back on my life and I can't believe the great fortune that I had, and just the people that came into my life, the coaches I had. I hear the stories of a lot of the kids that play for me now, and hear about the coaches that they have, the horror shows that they have as coaches. And I never had any of those experiences at all until I got to college. So I got through youth hockey completely unscathed, and had just real great role models. And they all took me under their wing and treated me like their own child, because I was pretty much, for all intents and purposes, fatherless. My dad left when I was 10 years old, and so it kind of left me to be the quote unquote man of the house. And that was tough, being a 10-year-old kid and having to shoulder that responsibility. I had two younger siblings, a younger brother who's 2 years younger than me, and my sister who's 7 years younger. So it was really difficult. But these gentlemen who came into my life. I think of Mr. Earl Perry from Toronto. He really did treat me like his own son, even though his son was on the team. Mr. Perry included me in a lot of family events and things of that nature, and just really made me feel comfortable and feel part of something bigger than myself.
Right. Well, I mean, before we even get into you, because I want to do that, but you already brought up a topic that's near and dear to me, which is coaching. I know you're involved in it now, and we both feel quite strongly about how impactful that role can be. We've seen it firsthand. Now, I work with clients that are dealing, as you said, in some have come across your path with coaches or coaching situations or environments that aren't maybe the best fit or conducive to that individual player being their best. How do you handle that in those situations? Meaning balancing the accountability that I feel there is accountability to the player in the relationship, you know, that they have to go to bat and they have to find a way to figure it out. And then also just being in a toxic environment. Like, how do you manage that with the people that come across your path?
It's really a balancing act, really. Honestly, like the question is a pertinent question. I think I look at each player as an individual, and I try to determine what that individual wants out of hockey. I always ask my players and all my students, you know, I ask them first what they want out of life. So if hockey were to end right now, what would you want to be, type of thing. And then I ask the hockey question, because honestly, I think that hockey is secondary. For me, honestly, hockey grew into something that I use as a means to an end. When I was 14, I decided I wanted to get a scholarship, because I discovered that you could get a scholarship and have your education paid for just because you could play hockey. And I thought that was amazing. So I decided to go for that. So I look for what they want first. And I often sit down with the parents. I want the parents involved because they're a big part of it, obviously. And so if the behavior doesn't match the goals, and I remind my students, and listen, you said you want to do this and this, if things have changed, let's just take another path. But either way, I don't care whether they want to play hockey or if they decide suddenly they want to be a pianist or whatever. I'd be willing to help them do that. You know, I had a kid one time, Jason, I remember this vividly. He was coming to my camp every summer. My camp's it's an expensive camp. It's a big ask for parents. And I noticed he was one day after dinner, he was just sort of sitting alone looking sad. And then I went up and asked him what was going on. And then I asked him the big question, because his behavior at camp over the years didn't really match the level of the kids that was there. So I asked him if his parents were forcing him to come to my camp. And I said, listen, I got your back. If they're forcing you, I'll help you with this. I'll help you get out of this. And I just said, or maybe hockey's not your thing. Maybe you've got something else you have a passion for. And at the time, my sister was there. She's a filmmaker, and she was doing some video to put on my website for me. And I just threw it out there, said, well, maybe you want to be a filmmaker like my sister. And all of a sudden his eyes lit up like this. And I said, is that what you want to do? And he goes, yeah, I love filmmaking. I said, oh, no way. I said, okay, well, I've got about 5 snippets of video collected from over the years. And I've been looking for someone to edit these videos together with some really cool music so I can put it on my website. I said, if you do that for me, I'll give you $300. And 2 days later, he had the video produced with the awesome music. And it was amazing. And he quit hockey and got into filmmaking. So, I mean, that's a win. That's a huge win. And hockey was a means to an end, right? Through hockey, he came to our camp. He met me and some other people. And through some conversation, he was placed on the path that he wanted to be on. And now, you know, he's doing really well. He's in film school, and everything's good. So we're really proud. Those are the stories that I'm most proud of. I'm actually more proud of that than I am of someone who made it to the NHL, because, you know, this kid took a huge risk. It was a big deal for him to quit hockey and you know, go against what his parents wanted. And then thankfully they did support him, and he's doing really well. So I'm very, very proud of that young gentleman.
That's awesome. That's a great story. With the role of coaches, just back to that other question I was saying. So like, and now I'm speaking like as a first person, as a player, because I think you must have been there as well. I know I have been there in an environment, you're on a team, and there's a coach that you're not jiving with. Now, there's been times where I feel that I was a part of that relationship, you know, that I played a part in the negativity that was surrounding that. And then there's also been times where it was just, looking back, just a bad environment. Like I wasn't his guy or the guy, and, you know, it was really not helping me at all. So no matter how I showed up, it maybe wasn't going to work out. What do you have with those experiences? And then when people come to me, like, that is one of the big issues for players, is how to navigate these environments. And do they quit and find somewhere else, or do they try and navigate within, you know? So can you shed some light on that, just maybe from a personal level or from a coaching standpoint, now when you have players come through your door?
Absolutely. I can think of for me, it was a long maturation process. I can tell you, first of all, how it started, and then how it ended. Okay. How I survived it. So I had these great guys coming up through my youth hockey in Toronto. And then I get to junior hockey. I have a great junior coach, guy that really believed in me. And actually he was the second person, I should say, the second person who convinced me that I had the potential to be a professional, because he played in the NHL a little bit, And I remember when he told me that, it meant the world to me to have his name is Mike Dwyer. And it meant the world to me to have Mike Dwyer tell me that I had NHL potential. That's when I started to really believe it. I was 19 years old. Then I got to college, and I had a coach who was, to say the least, he was very difficult. I'll tell you what happened. So I really struggled my freshman year adjusting to college hockey. And I remember one day we were playing in the Great Lakes tournament in Detroit. So this is a big deal. You had Michigan State there, Michigan, Northern Michigan, and us. I was at RPI. And RPI was the defending national champion. So I was coming into a school, to a program that had won the national championship the year before, and I was their top recruit. So there was a lot of media attention that I wasn't accustomed to, and I really struggled. And I'm not using that as an excuse, but that's just the facts. So we had at the Great Lakes tournament, the coach hated me. The coach couldn't stand me. He told me several times. Now, I had 15 scholarship offers. Okay, so at the time I was a number one recruited forward in the country, and so he told me that I was the biggest recruiting mistake in the nation, and that just crushed me. So we get to Detroit, and we get to the Renaissance Center. So this is a nice hotel, nicest hotel I'd ever seen up to that point. And he's handing out the keys for the rooms, or pairs of guys. So he'd say, Jason and Bob, here you go. Here's your key. So all the keys were handed out, and there's 4 of us standing there with no key. So he looked at us, and it's sort of a matter of fact, he acted like he'd forgotten we were there. And he says, "Oh yeah, you guys are going with Coach Peters." So we looked up Coach Peters. He had a minivan. He threw us in the minivan. We drove about 30 minutes out of town in a snowstorm, and then we pulled up to this Holiday Inn. He goes, "You 4 guys are staying in here. Your keys will be at the front desk." So we go to the Holiday Inn front desk, and there's one room for 4 guys, 2 beds, right? So we cram in there, and Coach Peter says, "I'll be back tomorrow at 9 to pick you up for practice." So he comes and gets us. We go to the Joe Louis Arena, we practice. And so we're expecting to go back to the hotel, the Holiday Inn. He says, no, we're going to the Renaissance Center. So we're thinking, oh, good, we're going to move to the Renaissance Center. Nope. There was this huge concourse. So the lobby was huge, and there are these elevators, right? And there's some chairs set up in front of the elevators, like for a meeting. So there's all these rows of chairs, and then there was 3 separate chairs in the front of those rows, right in front of the elevators. And he told me and 2 other guys to sit there. So now we're sitting in the lobby of the Renaissance Center. As you can imagine, there's other players from other teams going up and down the elevators and going about their day. And this coach is just ripping into the 3 of us. He's basically telling us we suck. We should quit hockey. We're not good enough to play at RPI, blah, blah, blah. And back then, you could actually transfer without having to sit out a year. And so one of the guys, actually, after the coach told us we should quit, he actually did quit. He went up to the Northern Michigan coach, because he was recruited by them 2 years previously. And he ended up going into the RPI, his room, grabbed his bags, and he went up to a Northern Michigan room in the hotel. And he couldn't play with them right away, but he left. Now, for whatever reason, I decided to suck it up and stay there. I don't know why I did that, because Michigan was there and Michigan State was there. They both recruited me. I probably could have transferred to one of those schools, but I chose to stay at RPI, and I guess because I'm very stubborn. So my sophomore year starts. I finally become a good college player. I'm having a great sophomore year, and all of a sudden, Jason, he makes me a defenseman. I'm a forward, right? So I was the worst defenseman in the league. I was terrible. And he wanted me to play D because I had a good shot and I could, for the power play and whatnot. So that's why he put me there. So then finally I go to my mentor. I learn how to play D the next summer, and I go back to RPI, and I'm one of the best defensemen in the league now, all of a sudden. And lo and behold, you won't believe it, the guy that tried to get me to quit a year and a half before made me one of the captains. So go figure that one out. So now the season ends. I'm going into my senior year. I'm undrafted. I had a really good junior year. And the coach wants to see me in his office one day. I said, all right, fine. I go over to his office. And he says, what do you want to do with your life, Graeme? And I hated talking to this guy. I was trying to figure out how to get out of this office. And so I'm going to tell him what he wants to hear, and maybe he'll let me go. So I said, okay, coach, I want to get my degree. And he was really about school, and he loved to hear that stuff. So I just threw that at him. And I started to leave. He goes, oh, no. What else? I said, all right, I'll be honest with you. I want to play in the NHL. He goes, nope, that'll never happen. You're not good enough. He goes, in fact, when pro scouts ask me about you, I tell them you suck. I go, okay, cool. And so I said, can I go now? He goes, yeah. So I left. So I'm walking across the street, and I'm bawling my eyes out. So I'm thinking, okay, the coach is telling everybody that I suck at hockey, and how am I going to play pro if this coach is sandbagging me? So I called my dad, called my family, said, okay, I'm going to quit hockey. I'm going to go in my senior year. I'm going to focus on school because I want to be a chiropractor and I want to get my grades up so I can get into chiropractic school. And I called my mentor and told him that I'm not playing hockey anymore. I'm going to go to tryouts next year. I'm not going to try. Hopefully I'll get cut. I have a scholarship that's guaranteed. They can't take the money away. So I was going to just do that. And my mentor had me talk to a scout from the New Jersey Devils. His name is Tim Burke, who actually was at Princeton during my recruiting year and tried really hard to get me into Princeton. And for whatever reason, this guy, Tim, liked me. And he shows up to the summer camp. I decided to work the summer camp because I promised to be an instructor. And I didn't want to leave Mr. Vincent, my mentor, high and dry without enough instructors for his hockey school. So I told Mr. V, I said, listen, I'm not going to train this summer. I'm going to go out to the bars with all the other college guys and have a great time, because I never did any of that stuff when I was in school. I was Mr. Straight and Narrow. I didn't party, nothing like that. But now, if I'm not playing hockey, I'm going to have at least one good year fun in college and enjoy the whole college experience. So I told him that. And so Mr. Burke comes up and says, I want to talk to you. So we went for a walk. And it was on Cape Cod. We're going for a walk. And he says, I heard you're quitting hockey. I go, yep, that's right. He says, why is that? I said, well, I don't get along with my coach. And I didn't want to get into all the details. And he goes, yeah, I heard you don't get along with him. And he says, I said, yeah, he told me he's going to tell all you scouts that I suck at hockey. And he goes, well, he does tell me you suck. I said, see, there you go. So why should I bother? I mean, if he says, well, Graeme, you don't seem to understand the scouting process. I said, well, why don't you explain it to me? He says, we as scouts, we don't respect a coach's opinion on a player. I said, he goes, we have eyes. We can see who's good and who's not. I don't need your coach to tell me who can play hockey and who can't play hockey. I just want to know if you're a good person or not, if you're a good character guy, and your coach thinks you're a great character guy and he says nothing but good things about you. He just doesn't think you can play. But that's not going to affect your position next year. He says, I guarantee you someone's going to sign you. I'll never forget that. And he says, I guarantee. He goes, there's no way all 21 NHL teams will pass you up. I said, okay. He goes, go back to school, have a good year, stay out of trouble because you have to play. If you don't play, then you're screwed. So I went back. I'm having a great senior year. And wouldn't you know it, we were playing Brown University. I scored the game-winning goal. And the way things worked at RPI, it didn't matter whether we won or lost the game, didn't make a difference if we played well or if we played poorly. He would sit there in the locker room and he'd go man for man and just tell you what he thought about your performance. We'd sit there for a half an hour waiting for him to go through all 20 guys and tell him, you sucked. If a guy didn't play, you did a terrible job opening the gate tonight. One guy tripped and you suck at opening the gate. I swear to God, he'd say these things. And so I come in after being interviewed because I got a star of the game or whatever. And I come in and he's in his middle of his tirade. So this is my fourth year. I'm so used to this garbage. I just sat down in my stall, had all my gear on still. And I've got my hockey stick in my hand, and he's going around. I'm number 12. He starts with number 1 and works his way all the way around to the last guy. So he gets to me, number 12. And I remember thinking to myself, I just got the game-winning goal. So I can't wait to hear what this jackass is going to say to me. So he looks at me, and he hesitated because he usually fired off his comments really quick, right? And all of a sudden he stops and looks at me, and he says, Townsend, what I saw between you and Bruce Coles after you scored that goal made me sick to my stomach. Now, Bruce Coles is the other black kid on the team. He was my roommate. And by the way, the coach made him move in with me because Bruce was sort of a wayward guy. And I was responsible for straightening Bruce out and bringing him into the fold type of thing, being take him under my wing. So yep. he told me to move Bruce into my place. So I did. So he says, he goes, I've been watching you two a lot lately, and you've been spending a lot of time together. Now, this guy told me, I want you eating breakfast with Bruce, lunch with Bruce, and dinner with Bruce. I want everywhere you go, I want him to go. He told me to do that. So, of course, dummy, we're going to be spending a lot of time together because he told me to do it. So I remember when he said that, I thought to myself, what an idiot. He told me to hang with this guy. And now he's complaining about it. I mean, I'm serious. This you can't make this stuff up. It's hilarious. So then he says to me, he goes, you guys have been spending a lot of time together. And instead of you two guys getting together and calling the NAACP and reporting the rest of us, you ought to bloody his nose. Now I'll tell you, I'm not dumb, but I'm not the smartest guy in the world. And I thought he said NCAA. I'm thinking to myself, what the heck's the NCAA got to do with me hanging out with Bruce Cole? Like, and then I realized, oh no, he said the NAACP. Oh, I get it. He's trying to say the two black guys are forging a bond against the rest of the white kids. That's what he's trying to say. I was like, this guy is insane. So then he says to me, if you don't stop acting like an N, I will start treating you like one. Now that was a magic word for me. I'm a pretty nice guy until you call me that name, and or even insinuate or even use that word around me. It drives me crazy. So I remember, okay, Tim Burke's words, stay out of trouble. Well, normally when someone called me that back in those days, especially if I had a hockey stick in my hand, there would be a really serious incident. It would get extremely violent. And so I have my stick in my hand, and my first thought was to go after this guy. And then I heard Tim's words. Well, smacking your coach with a hockey stick, it probably constitutes getting into trouble. And just imagine if I did that, not one NHL team would have touched me. So I decided to hold my tongue and stay in my seat. And as soon as he said the words, you could see the reaction on his face. He realized, oh, I screwed this up. And he went to the next guy and finished his thing. So I went into his office after the game, after I got dressed, and I said, Coach, I need to speak with you. And he said, well, I'm talking to the media. I'll get to you later. I said, all right, fine. So I waited for about 2 hours in the lobby, and he tried to sneak out of his office. I saw him sneaking away, and I poked my head around a corner and saw the guy sneaking out the back door. And I said, Coach, you have time to talk now? And he looked at me all shocked. I guess he thought I would have left because it was 2 hours. And so we sat in his office, and I just said, listen, I don't know what you think you see between me and Bruce, but you're the one that told me to move in with him. So obviously I will be hanging with him. But since you don't want me to anymore, I'll stop doing it right away. And I said, now another thing, don't ever use that word around me ever again. And so he didn't apologize. He kind of backpedaled and made an excuse for why he used the word. And I said, listen, he said he's trying to motivate me. I said, look, you're a very intelligent man. I said, you can think of a better way to motivate me, but I'm telling you, don't ever call me that again, ever. And that was it. So long story short, it got out. He was coaching a team where there were 20 guys that hated him. And he said that word to me in front of 20 people. And so a couple of my teammates ratted him out to the school. And long story short, he had to resign. That's how I learned to handle a person like him. So years later, when I got to the pros, there wasn't one single coach in professional hockey that could match this guy. Like a lot of these guys, when they try to be tough or whatever, I kind of laugh because I'm thinking, geez, you have no idea who I just dealt with for the past 4 years. This is nothing. So along comes a coach. I guess I can say his name. It's not a big deal. His name is Terry Ruskowski. And I'm near the end of my career. And Terry wants me to fight a lot, and I just don't feel like fighting anymore, So I could tell he didn't like the way I played. And I scored 19 goals for him one year in Houston, and I was the assistant captain. So the next year rolls around, and it's the end of training camp, and Terry calls me in his office. So I think we played 8 preseason games. I must have had about 6 goals. The weird thing was in hockey, didn't matter how well I did. If people wanted me to be a tough guy, and because I wasn't, it didn't matter. I could score 20. I could score 50 goals, and I'd be sitting. It was crazy. I remember I was one of the leading scorers of our team, and then suddenly I'm off the second line. Now I'm a 10th forward, and I'm one of the top scorers. Okay, so like that's crap I had to deal with. So I got 6 goals in eight preseason games, and Terry pulls me in his office and he says, "Yeah, I'm taking your letter away." I go, "Oh yeah, why is that?" "Well, you're not going to play much this year, and it doesn't make sense to have one of our captains sitting in the press box." I go, "Oh yeah, why am I not playing?" He goes, "Well, you had a terrible training camp." I go, "Really?" I said, "I've got 6 goals in 8 games. What the hell are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, you scored most of those goals the first few games." I said, "I don't care, Terry. 6 goals is 6 goals." He goes, "Well, you're not going to play." I said, "Okay, fine." I go, "Look," I said, "I don't really care what you think or what you say, Terry, but at the end of this season, no matter what you do, I'm going to have 20 goals." And he looks at me. I'm obviously, I know what he's thinking, like, how are you going to score if you're sitting in the stands? But this guy doesn't realize who he's dealing with. Okay. Like I have a lot of confidence. I'm serious. I really do. And I didn't know exactly how I was going to do it, but I'm getting 20 goals and this guy's not stopping me. And I really believed it. Swear to God. So 3 weeks went by. I didn't play a single game. And now I'm getting really mad. Like I'm getting angry. And I had this thing about coaches. If you didn't have the courage to look me in the face and tell me I wasn't playing, because some coaches will send the stick boy to go tell you you're not playing, Well, I don't let them do that. Like, I'll go to his office and if the stick boy comes to me, I'll go, no. I'll go to his office and I'll look him right in the face. Hey, am I playing or not? And I've done that many times. And you can just see him squirm. Oh, well, okay. Yeah, I guess you're not playing. So Terry didn't want to tell me I wasn't playing on this. We were going to Milwaukee for this road trip. So I said, you know what? We have to take a bus from the practice rink to the airport in Houston and then hop on the plane and whatnot. So I decided to hop on the bus, had all my stuff with me. And I figured he's going to get on the bus. He's going to see me. And then he'll grow a pair and say, okay, you're not playing. I'd get off because I didn't want to go to Milwaukee if I'm not playing. I didn't want to go on the road trip. I had a pool in my backyard. And it's Houston, Texas. I'd rather be in the pool with a beer, maybe listen to the game on the radio or something. But anyway, I get on the bus, and he looks at me, and you can see that he goes blank. He realizes, oh, shoot, I forgot to tell him. And he didn't tell me. So I'm sitting there going, like, I waved to him, too, like this. And he didn't do anything. So I'm thinking, is this jerk going to make me drive 45 minutes to the airport, then take a taxi back home? Because if that happens, I'm not going to be happy. So I get up to the airport, and he still hasn't said a word to me. The trainer's handing out the per diem envelopes, which are already pre-sorted. So obviously mine's not going to be there because I wasn't supposed to be on the road trip. And I said, Jerry, my money won't be there. You need to take that team's credit card over there and see that ATM. Go get me $100. Let's go. Chop, chop. So he gives me $100. And now he's handing out the boarding passes because we flew commercial, right? And I said, Jerry, go get me a ticket, man. So he goes, that's the trainer. He goes and gets me a ticket. So we get to Milwaukee finally. The power's out in the city. There's a big windstorm. There's no power, so we can't even have a pregame meal because the hotel's everything's out. So I'm not playing anyway, so I don't care about my pregame meal. I grabbed a turkey sandwich or something. So now we got to walk up the stairs to get to our rooms because the elevators aren't working because of the power. So imagine it's a pitch black staircase, and there's 20 guys walking up the staircase. I think Terry was somewhere on the staircase too. And I'm just cursing and I'm just losing my mind. I can't believe I'm here. I got to come to I'm just the worst attitude you've ever seen in your life. Finally get into the room. I'm rooming with the captain, Curtis Hunt. And I'm just griping the whole time. I can't believe this a-hole's making me come. So finally Hunt goes, listen, Towner, will you quit your bitching, please? He goes, just get dressed for warm up and just get ready to play just in case. So I said, yeah, okay, time to be professional now. Okay, you're right. So I decided to calm down, and I get to the rink. I'm warming up. Back in those days, it was a 20-minute warm-up. I used to take the entire 20 minutes to get prepared, but since I'm not playing, I decided to bugger off at the 10-minute mark, and I'm still bitter. So I walk in the locker room, and Mark Freer, a forward on our team, is sitting on the training table getting his knee looked at. And I go, hey, what's wrong with you? He goes, oh, I can't go. I twisted my knee in warm-ups. I go, what? So I realized now I got to play right, and I'm not ready. So I go into the bathroom. I used to have this like 25, 30-minute mental preparation routine. I did it all the time. When I've got to do that in 5 minutes. So I did. I sat there. I went through did an abbreviated version of my mental prep routine. So I'm in my stall now, and Terry walks in. Hey, Graeme, you're playing tonight. I said, yeah, no kidding, Terry. Thanks a lot. So then I get out there for the first period. I get one shift the entire period, and I scored, right? So I come back to the bench, and his jaw's like this. He's like, I go, I told you, and I sat down. So then the second period, he gives me another shift. I score again. Third period, I didn't get anything. So this went on for 3 games. I had 5 goals in 3 games, getting about 3 shifts a game, right? And so finally he calls me to his office after the 5th game. He says, I got to talk to you. Oh, sorry, the 3rd game. I talked to you. And he says, you're making me look like an idiot. I said, yeah, you look pretty stupid, man. I'm getting 3 shifts a game. And I've got 5 goals in 3 games. How's that feel? And he looks at, I said, you know what, Terry, remember I told you I was going to get 20? He goes, yeah. I said, well, listen, you should keep playing me the way you are right now, because I think I'm going to change my mind. I think I'm going to get 30 instead. And he looks, I said, yeah, I'm telling you, you're not going to stop me. I told you this weeks ago. And so, luckily he got fired later on, right? Not too long after that. So Dave Tippett took over as the head coach. And so the last game of the year, in the 3rd period, last game of the season, I'm in the upper slot. Puck's coming to me, but it's kind of rolling. So I get some wood on it, not much, but the thing you could actually sit there. It was going towards the net so slow. It was one of those little flippers, Cooper Black, and I'm watching the puck going to the top corner, and I'm laughing because I could have had a coffee, a beer, and a sandwich. It took so long to get to the net. And I said to myself, "Holy smokes, man! I'm gonna get my 21st goal, Terry." And I remember when it went in, I gave the Sky the middle finger 21 just for you, big guy. And so it made me laugh because, you know, I told this guy I was going to score 20 and he didn't believe me. But that's how I handle guys like that. You have to go in there with a ton of confidence. You can't let them shake you. And I guess the confidence comes from me. Like I knew I was going to get 20 goals. Like you could not convince me it wasn't going to happen. Even if I only had 3 or 4 shifts a game, and then I'll score every game. I swear to God, I don't know why I think that way. I just do. And it seems to work. My first coaching job, I can't believe this worked. I had no experience coaching. Like I really can't believe this worked. I gotta be honest. I'm amazed that this one worked because when you're playing hockey, like I believe that when I'm playing hockey, and if I want to score a goal, I don't believe you can stop me if I really want to do it because it's all up to me, right? It's what I do, and I can directly affect whether I score or not just through my effort. But coaching's different. There's 20 people involved in this thing. And I can't control their actions. You know what I mean? So like one or two guys don't feel like playing, we're not going to win. So I went into the interview and I was really well prepared. Dave Tippett actually gave me a lot of great advice on how to prepare for an interview. So I had a great presentation set up. But I think I have ADHD or something. I really do. I think I got some issues because I get bored really fast. So I'm sitting there with the 2 owners and the general manager. I'm going through my presentation and about halfway through and I got bored and I stopped. I turned off the projector and I sat down and I said, hey, I go, I cannot believe I did this. So Dave told me to get as much information on the team as possible prior to going. He says, when you ask questions, you have to know what the answers are going to be. All right. So I knew a couple things about this team that were really important. Number one, the owners had owned the team for 4 years. They'd made the playoffs every year. Number two, they'd never won a playoff round. And because of that, the owners were extremely angry. And that's why they fired the previous coach. So I knew all this. So I sat down, turned off the projector. I said, all right, guys, listen, you've interviewed 50 guys. You've seen all this garbage, okay? Salary structure, you know, community, blah, blah, blah. You've seen this 100 times. So listen, let's just forget about it. I understand you guys have owned the team for 4 years. They go, yeah, that's right. This is down in Macon, Georgia, by the way. And I said, okay, and you've made the playoffs every year, correct? Yes. I said, okay. And you've never won a playoff round, eh? No, we haven't. I said, man, that must really get you guys upset. You must be pissed about that. And they go, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we are actually. I said, all right, listen, if you hire me, I guarantee you that we will win at least one playoff round. And they looked at each other and like they looked like they were angry. And they said, okay, they ended the meeting right there. And so I left. So I'm walking back to the hotel going, oh, man, you sure put your foot in your mouth this time, you idiot. You screwed this up. So I get to the hotel. It's about a 20-minute walk, and the little light on the phone is on. So I got the message, and it was the general manager asked me to come back to the rink. So I went back to the rink, and I sat down in the office again. They said, okay, we'd like to offer you the head coaching position here. I said, okay, great, thanks. I shook their hands, and they said, do you know why we offer you the job? And I said, nope, not a clue, because I didn't. They said, well, you're the only one that had the guts to predict or to guarantee a playoff victory, and we expect you to deliver. I said, okay, great. Got up and I left. So I went back to the hotel. I called my wife. First person I called. I said, honey, I've got some good news and bad news. She goes, oh, well. She goes, well, what's the good news? I said, well, I got the job. And she's like, oh, she's crying. She said, oh, I'm so proud of you. Oh, this is great. Oh, great in your first job, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, well, what's the bad news then? I said, well, I told these guys I was going to win the first round. I have no idea how to do that, which was true. I didn't know what I was doing. So I get in there, I have an up and down season, you know, and I made a couple of good trades at the end of the year that really turned the team around. And so we make playoffs, but we're going to play the best team in the league. And they were the best team. They were like the Florida Panthers of the league. That they led by that much, just ridiculous. We played them 12 times that year. I think we beat them twice in a shootout. So we couldn't beat them in a 60-minute game. All right. So what I did was I just I decided to go to work, and I got prepared for that. We got to the point where I guess before analytics, I did my own analytics, but I did it with VHS, and we knew, me and my coaching staff knew every single player's tendencies on that team. And literally we could, wherever they were on the ice, we knew what they were going to do when in that area. So we prepared our team really well, and we smoked them, beat them 3-1. It wasn't even close. The closest game was a 1-0 loss in quadruple overtime where we hit 2 crossbars, a goal post. We were all over them. They got a lucky shot from center ice that somehow found its way between my goalie's pads for the winner. And then other than that, they didn't even belong on the ice with us. And so we ended up winning the first round. And I was like, oh, my God, I can't believe we just did that. Now, what I should have done, and what I tell my students is this, okay? I often said I wanted to play in the NHL, all right? And I think I made a mistake. I think your goals should be clearly defined and precise. I should never have said I wanted to play in the NHL. I should have said I want to play 1,000 games in the NHL, because playing one game is playing, right? Yeah. I played 45, and I think if I had a different mindset and approach it differently, I think I would have played more. So by saying I shouldn't have said we're going to win only one round, I should have said we're going to win the championship, because in the next round we lost 3-1. And we were bounced out of the second round, and then actually that was a semifinal. So I set my goals way too low, and I should have definitely set them higher. So I think if we did, I really believe as a group we would have done way better in the second round. Maybe not won it, but certainly wouldn't have lost 3-1. Right. But that's kind of that was a lesson I learned, and I tell my students all the time: don't just make these vague goals. Like be precise, be be deliberate about it. If you want to play 1,000 games in the National Hockey League, say you want to play 1,000 games. If you get to 100, that's pretty freaking good. It's nothing to sneeze at. And 100 is better than 45. If I had a choice between playing 100 or playing 45, I'm taking the 100 all day long. So I really should have set much higher goals. And that's what I think. I encounter a lot of players whose parents are afraid for their kids to do that. I should have done that. If I could go back again and relive my life, I would have done that. I would have set a higher goal. I would have made an outrageous statement, and I would have said, 1,000 games in the show. Boom. Just say it. Whether you do it or not, who cares, right? And as long as wherever you land is where you're supposed to land. But I think that if you can set those goals higher, I think somehow the universe rewards you for that.
Want to take a short break here to celebrate Graeme Townshend and talk about what he's doing out there in Maine. If you are anywhere in Maine and you have an amateur athlete that wants to get ready for this coming season, check out Townshend Hockey. That's TOWNSHEND. Love everything that Graeme's doing, what he stands for. Not only does he feel that hockey is important to these young athletes, of course, but he loves developing the human being inside the athlete. And he knows hockey is usually a vehicle to someplace else. And if you can learn, the character traits and the intangibles required for success, that will translate anywhere. So Graeme knows his hockey. He knows the skill development. He knows how to develop hockey players. He also knows how to develop good humans. I would definitely trust my son in his environment. We are on the West Coast, though. He's on the East. So if you're anywhere around Maine, he does boarding camps. He has mentorship programs. There's day clinics, all types of great stuff there at Townshend Hockey. Once again, TOWNSHEND, TownshendHockey.com. Check Graeme out. See what he's doing, support what he's got going on there, and your athlete will be the better for it. Let's get back to the interview with Graeme Townshend.
And so that's kind of how I guess that's where it all comes from for me, is believing in myself, believing that if I'm willing to work at something, that the universe or God will reward me for it. And that's kind of how I base everything I do now. Is I set really lofty goals, outrageous, stupid goals, and I'm not afraid to just come close. I'm not afraid. I don't view it as a failure. I got to tell you something, Jason. I learned a lot of that from someone that I started out not liking. I couldn't stand this one guy that I played with. I won't say his name, but I could not stand him. You'd be walking down the hallway of the rink, you'd say hi to him, he'd walk right past you. Like, I wanted to knock this guy out every time he did that to me, So one day we had, I don't know if you remember Saul Miller, the sports performance coach. He was one of the first. He wrote the book Hockey Tough.
Oh, okay.
And every team used them back in those days in the mid '90s. So he had a meeting with us, with our team, and this is in the NHL. So he says to us all, the whole group, So how many of you guys have ever failed at anything in your life? So everyone raised their hand except for this one guy. And he even puzzled Saul Miller. I remember looking at him. I've got my arm in the air. I look at this guy, and I said to myself, look at this arrogant guy. He's never failed at anything. Like, who does he think he is? And so Saul was puzzled. And Saul said, hey, let's just say his name was Bob. Hey, Bob, I noticed you didn't raise your hand. He goes, that's right. And he says, so you've never failed at anything in your life? He goes, nope. Can you explain? Well, yeah, sure. He goes, listen, I've set goals. I've hit roadblocks. But I don't view them as failure. He says, I view everything as a learning experience, and I just learn what I can from the experience, and then I move on. So I don't fail. And I'm like, wow, this is my favorite guy in the world right now. What a way to look at life, eh? Like, it's not failure, it's learning experiences. You set a goal, you don't achieve it. Okay, what did I do wrong? All right, fix it. And then you nail it the next time. I'm like, oh my God. So I instantly adopted that philosophy, and I stopped admitting to failure. No longer, I didn't like to use the word anymore, and I don't like my students to use the word. We go through a series of learning experiences, and we learn what we can from the mistakes we've made and the setbacks, and we get better, and then we nail it the next time. Because you think of failure, it's such a negative thing, right? And this guy never viewed it that way. And I swear, after that day, and that's when that was before the whole thing with Terry Ruskowski. So by the time I got to Terry, I had this in my quiver, right? Another arrow there. And I was ready to go, man. Like, no, I'm not going to fail. I'm going to get 20 goals, dude. And that's because I met that guy. And I'll never forget that. And that changed my life. And I've maintained that philosophy ever since. That was like 1994, I think it was. And haven't looked back since. So, yeah, that was really, really important. That was an important meeting. And, man, thank God I was in that place at that time. Because who knows what my life would have looked like if I didn't learn that. Do you know
a guy by the name of Terry Ryan? He's around my age.
I know the name. Yeah, I think I might have even played against him.
He was a first rounder to Montreal, and he fought Ty Domi a couple times. He's from Newfoundland, and anyways, he's a buddy of mine. I've been on his podcast. Anyways, he likes to talk, and he held the previous record for longest story time. And you just took over. I love it. That was like 20 minutes, man. I didn't even ask a question. I enjoyed every second of it, but that was perfect.
I think that's hilarious, man. I tell a lot of stories. I come from a family of storytellers, but yeah. So,
okay, well, I'm going to break down because there was so much there in that last like 20, 25 minutes that I want to talk about. One, I didn't get a chance to interject. They put you in a different hotel than the other teammates.
Yeah, they did.
Phenomenal. Can you imagine if that would happen in today's day and age?
Who knows? I mean, I couldn't imagine it. And of course, yeah, I mean,
like, what a premeditated thing to do, like to make you feel inferior, right? Oh. Like you have to go out of your way to do that.
Oh yeah. You're right. You're right. And everything he did was calculated for sure. Oh my God, yeah. You think about everything he did, and at the time, I just remember feeling sorry for myself.
Right. You know what I mean? But that's the thing. Bad. Like, I'm not saying that should have happened or it was good that it happened. Like, I definitely wouldn't say that. But like those types of things, like you already mentioned the word failure, like the adversity, right? And like the toughness or whatever you want to use there for you to show up again.
Yeah.
For you not to leave, for you to say, no, this is too important for me, or whatever it was that you went through, like that really galvanizes you and who you are and what you want to do. Right. And I think today's generation just, they don't see adversity that way, or they don't want to see it that way, and they want to leave, which kind of like was the original question that I asked you, is like, what do you do in these situations where adversity strikes now? Like, players want to run. Yeah. I mean, you were in a different hotel than your teammates in D1 college. Yeah. Right. What a great opportunity to say, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm out of here.
One of our guys did that. He actually left. Right. I just wasn't raised to accept quitting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I just can't quit no matter what. And then listen, that situation for 4 years was literally 4 years of hell. It was really bad. And I'll tell you, like, some people might say that, I should have quit, but I had a really serious mental issue after leaving that school. So there was a senior at RPI, and this guy had a hair across his butt for us freshmen. He didn't like us, especially me. So I'll tell you another story. And this is why, I grew up in Ontario housing. I grew up in what's known as the projects in Canada. And I'm not trying to say it's like growing up in the projects in Chicago. It's nothing like that at all. Canadian housing projects are not the same as, say, Southside Chicago or Brooklyn or something like that. But it's still tough by Canadian standards, okay? And if you don't stick up for yourself, and it has to be, I hate to say it, but in my neighborhood, it is always violent, okay? When someone did something to you, if you didn't respond in a severe and swift manner, I'm telling you, the whole neighborhood's going to pick on you and torment you the rest of your life, and you will be miserable. So you have to make a stand, and it has to be shock and awe. Like, I'm not saying going to take someone's life, but you have to be willing to go pretty darn far. So that's my mentality. So I'm going to RPI now, and I'm the only black guy, right, from this community, and everybody else is from middle class Canada and middle class Massachusetts, and they have a different way of looking at things than I do. So I got this guy who's picking on me all year, and I'll take a lot of stuff to a point. So, hey, freshman, unload the bus. Hey, no problem. I got to pay my dues. Hey, freshman, pick up the pucks. No problem. I'll pay my dues, because when I'm a sophomore, I don't have to do that anymore. So I'll pay my dues. So anyway, one day we're playing at Princeton. We won, but we didn't play well. I played poorly, so the coach was mad at me. So we get back to RPI. It's a 3-hour drive, and I'm getting off the bus, and I'm pretty bummed. So a teammate tells me a joke, and I start laughing. Well, the coach heard me laughing outside the bus. I have a very loud voice. He knew it was me, so he got on the bus and he asked who was laughing, and I said, "Me, coach." And he goes, "Townsend, that you?" I go, "Yep." He says, "How could you be laughing after the way you played tonight?" He goes, "Now I know how badly you want to play here." And he got off the bus. I'm like, I'm thinking, oh, great. So I get off the bus, and this senior, I'll call him Bob too, he's got this huge smile on his face, right? And he points at me, "You are in trouble." I go, "Yeah, what'd I do this time?" He goes, "Well, coach told all of us," he points to all the guys, "he told all of us not to talk to you anymore." I said, "Okay, great." So we get on campus, and sure enough, I say hi to guys. They walk right past me. Only one guy talked to me. It was he's my best friend to this day. His name is John Haley. He's the only guy that talked to me. So that's what I was dealing with. So now we go home for Christmas, and we only get one day because we have to play in the Great Lakes tournament. So this guy, Bob, he's from Toronto. He's going to give me a ride to Detroit. He says, "Meet me at such and such a subway station at 8 o'clock. If you're not there, I'm leaving." So, like, if I'm not there on time, he's going to leave me in Toronto. I said, "All right, fine." So I get there a half hour early. I wait for him. He gets in the car. We start driving to Detroit. And it's a 4-hour drive. The whole way there, he's just ripping me. I remember looking over my left shoulder as he's just jabbing away. I'm looking at his jaw, and I'm saying to myself, man, I should break that jaw right now. But if I do, we're going to crash and die. So maybe I'll wait till later. But I was going to sucker him. I was so mad, eh? So what I did was I realized, okay, I can't be beating up my teammates because I'm probably going to get in trouble somehow. So I'm waiting until the end of the season. He's a senior. So when the season's over, he's no longer my teammate. So I can do whatever I want. So the end of the year comes around, and I'm just thinking to myself, okay, how am I going to do this? Am I just going to jump him? Am I going to warn him? What am I going to do? So I'm trying to figure it out. And we had a team party. And sure enough, at the team party, he insults me in front of a whole bunch of people. And I said, this is my opportunity. So I said, listen, you've been on me all year. And I said, I've been waiting for this moment a long time. So you and I are going to go outside in the front lawn. We're going to take care of this right now. Let's go. So I start walking to the front door, and he won't move. I walk back over. I said, you're not going to fight me? And he just looks at me. I said, hey. I said, get up. Let's go. We're going to take care of this. Come on, let's go. And he wouldn't go. And so I finally said, you know what? I kind of figured you were a coward. That's why you bullied me all year. I said, now you've confirmed it. You are a coward. And all the guys started laughing at him. I shook my head. I said, I can't believe you're not going to stand up. And I walked away, and that was it. Didn't have to throw a single punch, but he did not want any part of it. And so that's kind of how I learned to handle things at that school. And that's why I think I survived, because I had that mentality. I just wouldn't let anyone pick on me. Even the coach, like, you don't think I can play here? Yeah, I'll show you. But he wasn't trying to get me to, he wasn't using reverse psychology. He really wanted my scholarship back. He thought I was a terrible player and wanted the money back. Right. And so there's no way he's getting it. I'm going to prove you wrong. And then sure enough, 2 years later, I'm the captain of the team. How about that, eh? It's pretty funny. But yeah, so that's how I got through it. And it's just quitting is not an option. It just isn't an option, no
I
matter
had
what.
I've told it on this podcast once or twice, but my draft year was kind of a similar story where I had a coach, and I'm still not sure. I would love to talk to him, to this, like have a sit down with him at this point. But he was 16, 17 years old, right? He was an old school coach by even in that generation in the 90s. He was old school. Brian Maxwell was his name. He was a first
I
rounder
know him.
himself. Yeah, he was a first rounder himself to the Kings, and he was a hell of a coach. Like to this, anyone ever asked me about him, I learned more from him about the game than probably anyone else I ever played for. Really understood the game well, taught us all the details, especially the defensive zone and everything else. But boy, was he hard on me, to a point where it wasn't helping me, like it wasn't helping me in my draft year after scoring 36 goals as a 16-year-old in the CHL. And then all of a sudden now I can't get on the ice. And then I have my dad who's so my dad wanted me to get traded, right? Like he wanted the GM to trade me. He wanted me to leave the room. He was going to pack my stall up one game when I was sitting on the bench. Like that type of stuff is going on in the background, right? And then I'm trying to manage everything. Like I'm trying to be a part of this team, right? I'm trying to be productive. I'm trying to understand what's going on, like the psychology of what's happening, and manage the relationship, because I didn't want to ask for a trade or quit, right? Because that wasn't part of me either, right? And then now you become this thing that maybe other people thought you were, like a spoiled kid, or like, but that was kind of like what Brian Maxwell, I thought, was portraying me as, right? Like that I was like the spoiled kind of entitled kid that was uncoachable. So now, like in my mind, I'm like, well, if I leave now, like all I'm doing is like making him right. Like I got to find a way through this. And I was never good at quitting anything anyways. Right. I think it was just something that was in me. And yeah, I stuck it out. I mean, he ended up quitting. The irony of that is, like, he came into the room right before one game and he's left, like legitimately right before a game was about to start. He resigned. Wow. I still think it was something to do with me. I don't think it was entirely, but there was that was right when things were really hot with me. So anyways, and then the draft year finished, and I did slide a ton. I was supposed to be top 10. I ended up going 31st overall. I mean, but I'm still like that moment in time, and I'm sure you relate a ton of stories now where you've had to have that galvanizing inner moment. Like for me, I'm really proud of how I handled that year. It didn't help me maybe professionally, let's say, right? It didn't help me from a draft standpoint. And maybe if I did get traded and got first line minutes somewhere else, it probably would have helped me from a draft standpoint. But just standing in that fire, like standing inside that fire and not going away and not getting pushed around and doing it on my terms. I'm still to this day proud of that, and I think that there is some resolve there that you find, and for sure it's helped me outside of hockey. It helped me after in hockey when you meet somebody else or you're in a new situation or whatever, right? You build this kind of fortitude that you wouldn't have otherwise. So it's interesting, man. Like those scenarios that come up, right? It's how we do it. And sometimes when I'm working with my players now, right, like having that, you used the word mentor a lot already, like having that mentor or that coach or that someone that can help you find your own way through that, can be super, super helpful, and that's one of the things that I really try is empower these young athletes to not go away, to not go away, find a way through where they feel like they're in control of the situation. I really think that helps, not only in the hockey aspect, but also, later on. But I wanted to ask you the other thing. Well, just about you getting out of that RPI. Well, first of all, I guess we have to unpack that N word because it is relevant right now. And I know the NHL is doing a ton with it now to increase, diversity and acceptance and everything that's happening in that day and age. Like if I got my years right, it must have been around 88, 89. I'm almost impressed by the school that like them knowing about that caused his resignation. That was kind of back in the dark ages where I thought that maybe wouldn't have that type of a reaction to that.
Well, definitely. Let me first say that I don't believe that the coach was a racist. I really don't. I just think he and because I had another teammate that called me that name one time too, and I'm not necessarily sure that guy was a racist. Just because he used the word, I don't think necessarily means you are. He could have called me if he was a racist. Naming a black person as your captain is one of the dumbest things you can do. That's the most anti-racist thing I think you could do. That's just my opinion. So I just think he made a really stupid mistake. And regardless of whether it's a mistake or not, it still angered me. And I felt that I took care of it to my satisfaction. I put him on notice. because use it. I didn't tell him what was going to happen if he used it against me, if he used the word again. But it wasn't going to be me going to the school. It was going to be me going after him. Like I would have definitely gone after him physically if he called me that again. And I was just telling him, you're going to be in serious trouble if you ever use that word around me again. That's what I meant by it. There's no way I was going to go and tell on him, because I've always, again, I grew up in an environment where you took care of yourself. You didn't. I didn't seek anybody else's assistance in helping me with anything. As a kid, I did it myself. If I had a problem with somebody, then I didn't go tell my mom about it. I just went and took care of it myself. That's just how we learned to do things in our neighborhood. Again, going and telling on somebody was the worst thing you could do in my neighborhood. We called those people rats, and you didn't want to be a rat in my neighborhood, because, again, like I said, socially you'd be done forever. And there's no coming back from this. So the school did the right thing. He did need to leave for sure. And the school did show some support, and I respect that. But the community itself, man, that hasn't changed. The community itself blames me for him leaving. Like, there are still people there to this day that blame me for that. And I'm first of all, I'm not the one that told on him. In fact, when I was doing an independent study with a professor at the school, and in fact, she just recently found me on Facebook about 4 months ago and apologized to me for this, because what she did was wrong. So I was doing an independent study, and one of my teammates was doing the same thing, doing this independent study with her, and he told her about this. So the way this works is I'd write a paper, I'd take it to her, she'd grade it, I'd make corrections, and then I'd just get an A. Right? That's independent studies are very easy in college. So anyway, I'm getting my papers graded, and then all of a sudden she stops in the middle of reading them, and she said, "I got to ask you a question." I said, "Okay, go ahead." And she asked me the question, and she went and she recited word for word what he said to me, as though she was sitting right beside me. I was blown away, because she got it perfectly accurate. And I just looked at her. I said, "Hey, who told you that?" She says, "Well, is it true?" I said, I want to know who told you. And she says, "One of your teammates." I said, "Well, let me tell you something. What happens in the locker room stays in the locker room. I took care of it already. I don't need anybody's assistance. We're good." She says, "Well, you should report this." I said, "Nope, not going to happen. It's over." It was like 2 weeks before. It was 2 weeks before this meeting with her. I said, "It's over. We're done." And she says, "No, you should at least report it and have it put onto his employee file. It's something that never gets revealed until he's looking for another job or something like that." I said, "No, I'm not doing that." I said, "Look, I just want to get my degree, sign an NHL deal, and get the hell out of this place." I said, "You guys will never see me again. Okay, I just want to go. Just leave me alone." And she couldn't let it sit, so she went and told on him. And that's when it got out, and that's when everything went crazy and ruined our whole season. Our season went right down the tubes after that. And so she actually, and then of course I'm thrown in the fire, because now everyone knows about it, so the media gets a hold of it, and suddenly I'm on TV, I'm being interviewed all over the place, and I'm trying to duck out of town and make sure. I went to Florida with my mentor. Some newspaper reporter found me down there in the hotel we were staying in. It was a nightmare, and so she shouldn't have done that. She should have respected my wishes and kept me out of all that, because it wasn't the right time, and I didn't want it. And so, but 4 months ago, she actually apologized, and I said, "You know what?" I said, "Thank you, appreciate that. It's better late than never." So she did the right thing. She finally made up. She made up for it,
What in doing the brief bit of investigation I did about you, you were the first player from Jamaica to ever play in the NHL.
Yeah,
Jamaican player.
I used to joke about that all the time. I wasn't good enough to play for Team Canada, so I figured, maybe I start Team Jamaica, and I'd be on the power play, kill the penalties, I'd be the stick boy and the coach and everything else. So yeah, I always joked about it, and then sure enough, someone started a Jamaican hockey program that I was involved with for a brief moment. But first Jamaican-born player. I was born in Jamaica, moved to Toronto when I was 3.
When you were 3,
my brother was a year old.
Yeah.
And so technically, I am the first Jamaican. Well, I am the first Jamaican-born NHL player. So yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like what an amazing little accolade to have there. But how was that? You mean that experience being a Jamaican Canadian in Canada playing hockey? at a time where I don't even know what was the atmosphere like then? Like, I know we've talked offline a little bit. You said that you never really encountered anything, but can you walk us through sort of what that was like?
It was great. I loved where I lived. I grew up in the Pape and Danforth area. We first moved to Pape and Danforth. Anyone that knows anything about Toronto, it's a highly ethnic community. There are a lot of people from everywhere. You name it, man. We had people from Greece, we had Italians, we had Portuguese, we had Asian people, we had everybody. It was awesome. It was literally a melting pot of 50 different cultures. And I had friends like you would never know. Like kids don't learn racism from not from this. They learn it from parents and from adults and whatnot. But we didn't know we were different. We're just a bunch of kids playing hockey together, and we loved it. So no one ever. I can't remember anyone ever crossing a line, because in my group of friends there was white kids, black kids. We had another kid who was Portuguese. We had another Asian kid. So we all just kind of like just hung out together, and there was never a problem. It wasn't until I actually didn't encounter anything really all that terrible until I got to college. And I got to tell you, I'll tell you, I'm going to get a lot of hell for this, but the negativity I got, other than my coach and that one teammate, came from the other minority students. I don't think they liked the fact that I played hockey. I'm just speculating, because I got the cold shoulder from everybody. And it wasn't until this thing happened with my coach. So Bruce Coles and I are sitting in the cafeteria by ourselves, because my teammates, in their defense, they were afraid to show any support, because they didn't know if the coach came back and you showed some support to me and Bruce, I'm telling you, this guy's he's gonna crucify you. You're not gonna play. And so my teammates were afraid to hang out with us. I had no problem. I totally understood why they did it, because I probably would have done the same thing. So Bruce and I are sitting in the cafeteria in the corner, because we didn't want to be seen, and we're sipping soup, and the guy that was running the minority student council walked up to us. And this guy for 4 years had never said a word to me. I'd seen him at frat parties and everything, said hi, just blew me off. Like, honestly, just really disrespectful. So all of a sudden he comes up and says, listen, I want you to know that the minority student council, we are offended by what your coach said, and we'd like you guys to come down with us and march on the president's office. And I looked at this guy, I said, listen, dude, I've been here for 4 years, and this is the first time you've ever talked to me. Okay. I've said hello to you many times on campus, in classes, and you just gave me the cold shoulder. Now suddenly you want to be my best friend and have me march on the presidents. I go, listen, you go march yourself. Me and Bruce are eating our soup. Like, get out of here. So we finished our soup. Like, I don't want, you guys want to use me for his cause. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't care about me. So that was the first time I ever really felt black, I guess. And I know those students didn't like me playing hockey. I'm pretty darn sure of it, because it's considered a white man's game, I suppose. But that was it. And then, of course, really not much in the pros. I got called the N-word a couple times, but again, I don't think it was motivated necessarily by racism. I think guys were trying to piss me off, and that's one good way to do it for sure. So I became best friends with one of the guys that call me that name. So I just never really had the issues that these kids are having today. I certainly didn't experience anything like that from a coach after college. The coaches I had were great. I had Rick Bowness, I had Mike Milbury, Don McAdam. I had some great coaches. Even Terry was a good coach. I liked playing for Terry. Dave Tippett was probably the best coach I ever had. And so I had no problems whatsoever. And if I did, maybe I'm just oblivious to it. Maybe I just don't let things get to me. I have no idea. But I didn't feel like I didn't experience anything that these kids today are experiencing. And what they're going through today is real. It's really bad. And shame on all those parents who allow their children to behave that way. But I have a lot of kids that I work with, and it's horrible what they're going through right now.
Do you think it's worse now, you think, than before?
Way worse. It's like, I think, I'm not saying that there are no racist people in back in the 80s. I just think they were ashamed to express themselves. I think that's what it was. I think they were underground. Now they're not ashamed. They're proud of it. They just come out and say it. Right. Yeah, because no one holds them accountable. In my neighborhood growing up, like, let's say I went to George Vanier Secondary School. If you called a black person a name, 10 white kids would jump you in my school. That's what kind of people I went to school with. They were amazing. that just usually we're not allowed to behave that way. And I'm not talking about the black kids. I'm talking about the white kids would be on you. They would.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have to worry about the black kids. The white kids would already be on you and stop that kind of behavior. I'm dead serious. That doesn't happen today. I don't believe. I think you have a lot of good kids who don't like what's going on, but they're afraid to do the right thing. Whereas I believe in my day, I really don't believe that the kids were afraid, because if there were more of them that were willing to step up and do the right thing. I think today a person like that's a unicorn, and they're afraid to do it. Right. I think that's why it's perpetuating and why it's such a big problem.
You know what? And this is just coming to me, and it could be completely wrong too, but like the lack of societal acceptance with physicality now, and especially at schools and everywhere. Do you think that has something to do with it? Like,
yeah. Oh yeah. So I'll tell you,
you are not allowed to wrestle at school anymore. You're not like my kids who are in, like, my one kid's in grade 7, right? So he's been to elementary school now from grade 1 to grade 7. He has not seen one fight at his school.
Well, and I'm not even
like, to me, like, I'm not. Yeah. I should just give me a second, because I don't want to sound like I'm a Neanderthal, and I don't think like that it should be celebrated, because I'm sure like the school is probably celebrating that Hudson hasn't seen a fight on school, but like I don't think that's normal. You know what I mean? I don't think it's natural. Like I think that there's times where it does call for it in some way, shape, or form, or at least the threat of it, and which maybe now inspires these kids to use words more, because there's nothing that's going to go wrong as far as like physical harm.
I think you're right, Jason. I think the problem is so let's go back to the 80s and 70s, right? So when I was growing up, you could get into a fight, and someone would scuff you up. All right, you wouldn't go home and grab a gun. You'd go home, you'd lick your wounds, and then maybe a week or two later you try again. But the problem is, the reason why they have to be so strict is because some kid will go home and grab a gun and kill that kid. Like, they will do it. That's the problem. Today they're crazy. Right. Okay, you have to be crazy to want to take someone's life for beating you up or calling you a name. You have to be out of your mind. And I'm telling you, that's why they have to do it. There has to be zero tolerance, because these kids will do it. And then you've got parents who allow their kids access to deadly weapons. Yeah, we didn't have that when I was growing up. No one's gonna stab you with a knife or anything like that. You're gonna get beat up, and you're gonna get a bruise or something, maybe a cut. And then it's over. Next day, you guys are friends again. How many times did that happen to you growing up, where you had a fight with somebody, and the next day you guys are having lunch together, right? Today, and that's a sad commentary that this is happening. That kids will go that far, and to take a person's life for something like that. And that's why I believe there's zero. At my hockey schools, zero tolerance. I don't allow any fighting. You have to. I'm going to call it hugging it out, but you have to resolve things diplomatically and through conversation. Because if I let a kid knock somebody out, what if the kid falls down, hits his head, and dies? Right? That can happen. And so I have a zero tolerance for fighting too at my hockey schools, simply because it's just not safe for all the kids. And I think that's what's going on. But yeah, I think teaching kids to step up and not be afraid to say what they have to say if they see something wrong, to step up and not be afraid to be alone, because sometimes you're gonna have to risk maybe not having friends because you don't support a popular stance. But what I believe is, in hockey, you've got parents that are like that, the bullies, and they try to form these little cliques, right? And so I find that like, I stand up to those people, okay? And they all say the same thing. I'm gonna tell everybody your program sucks. You'll never have any kids. And I always ask myself, listen, I've been hearing that for 30 years. When is this going to happen exactly? When is my business going to fail because you tell everybody that I'm a jerk? And I think a lot of the people who are afraid to step up and say something, they appreciate it when I do, because I think they want to do it, but they're afraid to, right? And I think that's why, like, you'd be surprised if you step up. You'll have way more friends than you would if you just accept and join the crowd. People want to follow leaders who lead you the right way, and you'll find, like, I had a lot more friends because I was like that. I didn't lose any important friends by standing up for what I believed in. The ones that no longer hung out with me, I didn't want to be friends with them. But the ones that I had tons of friends in school. And I think that's why I wasn't afraid to do what was right. And that's my message to all my kids. Like, stand up for what's right, and you will have a lot of support. more than you can handle.
I agree. Your story, I mean, coming from what you talking about being one of the highest recruited or the most highest recruited players, doesn't fall in line with what we were talking about earlier with you thinking that you were never supposed to play in the NHL. When did that big switch happen, and how did it happen? And I will preface this by the story when I first met you that first time, which I still think is amazing because you know how much I'm into mindset and how much I appreciate that, that a person's ability to overcome and to want and to achieve, with you telling that story about Boris, and maybe I'll let you maybe tell that story about riding your bike and making up this person named Boris on your own personal journey. But how did you become somebody that wasn't supposed to make it to somebody that did make it?
Well, again, I opened my big mouth. I was 16 years old. First of all, I learned about college hockey when I was 14. I was reading the Hockey News magazine. There was this preseason poll that came out, and it ranked all the college teams and Canadian University, Canadian Hockey League teams, and everybody, NHL. And I'm reading the article, reading all the rankings, and I saw the college section, the NCAA section. I was thinking, wait a second. I look at Michigan State, Michigan. I said, I recognized all those names from football. Right. I said, they have hockey down there? And then I started reading about each team's synopsis and whatnot, or preview. And it talked about scholarship, this, scholarship, that. And I thought, wait a second, they give scholarships for hockey? I had no idea. I thought it was just for football and basketball, really. So I decided I was going to get one of those. And so I didn't know how to do it. I just asked questions of my coaches. One coach told me, well, you got to get to junior B or junior A hockey to get a scholarship. I said, okay, fine. So now I'm 16 years old. I'm playing midget A hockey in Toronto, not midget AAA, not midget AA, midget A. And me and some friends were out having lunch one day, and we were talking about what we wanted to be when we grew up. And I said I was going to get a scholarship and play in the NHL. And one of my buddies, Greg, laughed. And I was really angry. He was laughing at me. And he said, there's no way you're going to make it. You're not good enough, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I said, all right, well, you watch. I'm going to make it. So I left the cafeteria, and I thought, again, oh, boy, here we go. You opened your big mouth again. You better make this happen, because if you don't, you will be ridiculed the rest of your life. They will never let you live this down. And so I just started to really go crazy on the weight training. So now all of a sudden when guys would invite me to parties, I'm like, no, can't go. Sorry, got to lift. Or I got to shoot pucks. I got to do this, got to do that. I even turned on a date with a really good-looking girl in school because I asked her out on a date. And at the end of the day, a buddy of mine said, hey, North Toronto Arena's outdoor rink is opening tonight. It was early November. Usually these rinks don't open until late November, and all of a sudden they have ice. So I called her up, and I feel bad about this. I pretended I was sick, and I went to play hockey. And that's how committed I was to hockey. Forget the girl, man. I'm going to go play pond hockey for 3 or 4 hours with my buddies. So that was my mindset. So now I'm finally I go try out for a junior B team. I got cut. They said, hey, we have a juvenile program which feeds our junior B program. Why don't you go try out for that team? So juvenile had what you called, basically it was called juvenile major and then juvenile A. For some reason they skipped the AA at the juvenile level. So I went for this juvenile major team, which was like AAA. And but it wasn't, you know what I mean? It just labeled AAA because I think it made you feel good about yourself. Yeah. So I go there, I got cut from that team. And then I said, okay, I'm going to try for another juvenile major team. I tried it for a second juvenile team. I got cut from that team. Then I went to juvenile A. And I made this team, and I'm sitting in the locker room.
16 or 17? How old are you at this
point? I was 17 years old. I was turning 17, so this is like August. I turned 17 in October. So I'm sitting in the locker room. The kids are in there. They all knew each other. I was a new guy, and they're talking about partying and smoking drugs and stuff and drinking. And I'm thinking to myself, because other teams I played on, guys didn't do that, and I don't know why, but I didn't have teammates that were into that stuff. Yeah. I remember thinking, oh, man, I don't want to hang with these guys because I thought they were losers. So I was going to quit hockey. I wasn't going to play on this team. I don't want to be exposed to people like that. So I was going to quit. And then God was looking out for me because the Bev Stoddart, the coach from the Don Valley Villagers, called me. He was the second juvenile team that cut me. And he said, hey, listen, one of our kids made a junior B team. So I have a forward spot left. Do you want it? And I said, absolutely. So I signed with that team. And so now we have a team party. and I didn't drink at all. Didn't do anything. So we have a team party. Someone offers me a beer. We're 17 years old, by the way. And I said, no, I don't drink. And one of the guys called me the P word. So I got mad. Again, like I told you, I'm from the hood. And I said, hey, let's go outside. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, you call me the P word? Let's go. And he goes, no, you didn't want to fight me. So I said, all right, well, I don't drink. So shut it. And that was it. So the next party we had, now this is why I say, like, when you stand up for what's right, this is what happens. Like, I was nervous because I'm the new guy. I'm thinking, they're all going to hate me, right? Because I don't drink. Well, the next party we had, they had a case of Diet Pepsi. And one of the guys goes, hey, Towner, that's yours. I go, cool, man. So I remember they were playing quarters, okay? And I wanted to play quarters. So they let me play quarters with Pepsi. And then they made me an assistant captain. Boom, instant respect because I stood up for myself. I'm telling you, that's why I became the assistant captain of the team. So then I played there for 2 years. And then suddenly